The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. Hey everybody, it's Prim. Welcome to The Next Chapter, presented by Baron Davis and Slick Studios. This week, it is the second of a two-part interview series with former world number one and U.S. Open champion, also my childhood friend, Andy Roddick. Last week, we talked about our intersecting childhoods, including the similarities and also differences in our experiences at the tennis academy we attended in Tampa, Florida, Saddlebrook, and also what allowed him, unlike the rest of us, to achieve the level of success that he did, including his meteoric rise from a top 40 in the world junior player to then top 10 in the world on the ATP tour and a Grand Slam champion. And to do all that in just 2.5 years is unbelievable. So in this portion of the interview of our conversation, we talk about his decision to retire and how quick it was. Literally, he woke up one day while at the 2012 US Open and decided, that's it, I'm done. Called a press conference, walked away. And I just so happened to be there in 2012 at that press conference because I was a journalist and reporter and anchor at ESPN. And we also talk about why he decided to essentially throw out most of his trophies one day while him and his wife, Brooklyn, were moving, which makes me wonder why I'm still holding on to all of mine. It makes me very self-conscious. I think what stands out for me in this portion of our conversation is how every athlete will respond differently to retirement. There will always be an emotional response, but what moves an athlete about this transition from sport will be different. For some, it is the identity loss, the loss of the athletic identity. For some, it is that relationship with sport. For others, it's losing that skill or the structure or the culture. And for Andy, it was the relationships. That was the thing that moved him and that made it so difficult to walk away. And this is actually a very similar experience of what veterans endure when they are transitioning and experiencing retirement, because that's one factor that actually contributes to difficulty during the retirement process for not only veterans, but also elite athletes, is that loss in social support and social capital. Because athletes and veterans are really unique because they have this built-in structure of support with their team and coaches and unit. And this is something that I've really been learning about in some of the research that I've been doing in my doctoral program as a PhD student in the counseling psychology program. So when athletes and veterans leave that space, they have to rebuild their network. And there is that loss, that sense of loss, especially with their social support. And you'll hear that from Andy in this portion. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this next conversation with Andy Roddick. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that balance, why everybody talks about how important balance is just to maintain a healthy perspective or a healthy life. So, I mean, these days, kids are specializing in sport sooner and sooner and starting earlier and making a decision at, instead of 12 or 14, at 7, 6, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be a professional football player. I'm going to be an NFL player.
7-year-olds don't decide that. Parents decide that for 7-year-olds.
I know.
Every 7-year-old wants to be a major league pitcher. Like it takes decision making from.
Agreed. Yeah. I was just having this conversation. I brought it up in a previous with Gerald. I'm going to bring it up again, but it was a discussion turned into a debate with my husband and my brother and my sister-in-law about my nieces. We were having and both of them swim, and we were talking about like, what do we do when kids want to swim or play tennis at 7 because their friends are in there and they just want to do that one sport. And I was against it because I've been through it. I lived the life that you didn't. I lived the hyper-focused life. And it manifested itself in negative ways. And it took me a long time. So when I lived a life where it was all tennis all day, every day, and it was part of my identity, when it wasn't there anymore, I struggled.
Sure. Even after college.
Oh, yeah.
It's surprising, because college, you would think like it would kind of be like the epitome of social normalcy, with the option of being very serious about a sport.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, this is funny, like how we're catching up now, but on the surface, right? It's funny, on the surface of what I know of you, we get one story. And on the surface of what people know me, it looks like, oh, Prim went to Duke, and she has some surgeries, but she went to school, they won a national championship, and she went and has a successful career in broadcasting and all that stuff. Yeah, it's good. But I did struggle when I was at Duke. It was a really, really tough experience. I loved it. I wouldn't change anything. I love my Duke family. But it's a huge responsibility to be a D1 student athlete, especially coming from Saddlebrook. The Saddlebrook classroom, and then going to Duke. I was really intimidated. I thought I was so afraid I was going to look. I remember being in a writing class, and I had a B-, and all my papers were A's. So I went to the professor. I was like, hey, I have a B-, but my grades are really good. She says, you're not participating. And I told her, I was like, I'm too afraid to say anything out loud because I don't want to say anything stupid. Because I thought I was surrounded by geniuses. You know? And then I had 3 surgeries and all that. So I had 3 surgeries my junior year. And injuries are tough because we use our body as a vehicle. That is our vehicle to success.
Defines us in a large part, yeah.
So when it broke down, I was disappointed. And on the surface, once I graduated from college, I had already lined up what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to get into sports broadcasting, had my eyes set on ESPN. But I was still wrestling with the fact of how my career had ended and who I was once tennis was no longer a part of my life. And I didn't know, you and I connect, I think, on we're not gray people, we're black and white. Tennis is easy because it's like, even if I lost, like I know my value, I know where I stand.
It's fair.
You know what I'm saying?
It's very fair.
Like in business, you don't know where you stand. You're not getting feedback. Tennis is a very technical sport, so it's like you know what you need to work on every single day. Your serve, jump up, height, forehand. It was way too confusing for me, and I think I lost a lot of that. But I was able to function, and I was able to function well, but I didn't know how to digest my emotions.
We were also at different points, though. Like by the time I had. At 22, when you graduate college, maybe that's too soon to have to give it. I had played a full career by the time I retired. So I think that's very different. If there was something left, it wasn't the best of it for me. Right. Right. So I think it's a little different. Like my transition from tennis to family business philanthropy, people are disappointed because when you texted me about this project, like it's the most boring thing ever because it's just like it was fine. Like it was good.
From sport was
I loved it.
Fine.
Like it was great. Like it's still fine.
So did you ever struggle with the idea of retiring? Was there ever a point where I
did it the same day. I did it 4 hours after it came into my head. 5 hours, and then that was it, and it was done. And that was it. It's like, what are we going to do? What's next? Where are we going to apply time? I took a year, and I was pretty lazy, and then it was kind of back into, and I had other interests. I had started, a real estate company, and I was 5 years into that. So there were other things going on. I think athletes make the mistake of retiring and then going, what now? As opposed to kind of building those blocks during their careers. And so it was never a question of like what I was going to do afterwards. And so I didn't struggle with that. I didn't keep playing because there was nothing else there.
I think that's one thing that I've learned in doing, you sent me an article and some bits and pieces of information. I think that's the one thing that I've really learned about your journey. I did not know that you were planning so far in advance. which is interesting because when you and I talk, you always kind of make these self-deprecating jokes about being a high school dropout and all that stuff.
No, I graduated.
I know, but you did say that.
I didn't go to Duke, but...
But you were...
Wasn't at my graduation because of tennis, but I did. I think I graduated. I don't know. I don't know if I had the actual... technically I did. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you started your foundation at 18?
Yeah.
That's really young.
Mm-hmm.
So what was going through your mind about just planting the seeds for the future? How is that even possible? Because
it's for me, like I think there's complicated issues can be treated very simply. For me, it was like, if I want to do business, it's okay. You know, with our commercial real estate company, it was recession hit. We have liquid assets. How can I apply them? There has to be an opportunity here right now because everyone wants kind of what we have, right? They want to get liquid and they want to have some flexibility as the economy's squeezing. It's like, how do we take advantage of it? And so it was a very simple question. We found a pretty simple answer. And then you wait 11 years and you look smart because you're, halfway into 20-year leases with Starbucks and, different companies. The foundation was the same thing. It's like, there has to be an opportunity to do something great. What tennis does not get enough credit for is the vacuum of culture, philanthropy, the absolute icons of our game, whether you're looking at Billie Jean King and what she's done for social change, and Martina Navratilova coming out in the 80s. That wasn't a thing.
That's crazy.
That wasn't a thing.
No.
She doesn't get enough credit for what that took,
Yeah,
especially at the peak of her career.
Yeah.
We've already discussed Andre, what he's done with an entire area of Las Vegas in his charter schools. Roger Federer being a lead ambassador for UNICEF and then graduating from that into building his own schools in Africa. Arthur Ashe. You just look at it's like the biggest people in our sport set the example of what you're supposed to do. So I'm traveling. I've
said time and time again that we are in the most progressive sport compared to
I think that's
others.
Right. And so traveling around with Andre and hearing him, I was lucky because I got to sit in, a car with Andre when we're going around playing exos and he's basically just needs someone. He's gets an offer from Houston and they say, who are you going to play? He would bring me in and we would play. But lost in all that is the car rides to and from the airport. The plane goes up, it comes down, we land. Hearing all his conversations about, with his foundation, how are we going to do this? What, basically just eavesdropping on his life made a huge impact. So I was like, how do you just start? So our first thing was like a clinic in a parking lot, and then you fast forward and you do a little bit more and you do a little bit more and you do a little bit more. And now we serve 3,500 kids a day. So it's just for me, there were always very simple things that I didn't try to psych myself out about. You just start and then you figure it out and you ask questions along the way. You're going to make some stupid decisions. Just don't make them twice, And so things that seemed complex looking backwards were simple thoughts, but I just didn't psych myself out about the follow through.
I just wonder where you get the energy because tennis is an exhausting sport where you're especially at 18, 19, 20. That was like, that was on your up and up.
Mm-hmm.
You won the US Open at 21.
Mm-hmm.
So how were you, those were your first years on the tour and yet you're trying to organize and launch your charity and your foundation
mm-hmm.
and trying to do things for other people. And we say that in the same breath of that tennis players are super selfish.
Mm-hmm.
So was it from Andre?
Well, the inspiration, and the ideas have to come from somewhere. So yeah, he was my closest reference to what it should look like. And I knew the best version of Andre, and he would tell you that. It was post all the drama. I hit it perfectly when he was on the upswing, back at number one in the world, peak performance, peak human. Steffi, I think, doesn't get talked about enough about her influence on Andre. So I knew that version. I didn't know the one who may have been rude sometimes and maybe made bad decisions and maybe was a little spoiled. And I didn't know that. I knew the person that had wrestled with all of those demons and come out good. So he was a huge inspiration. But the other thing about tennis, though, it's weird. Like, there's a lot of downtime. Like you wait a lot. Like if you're fourth on after 12 doing like,
true.
that's the thing I miss the least is like the waiting. Like you play a night match at the US Open, you're on at 10 p.m. You wake up at hopefully 9 if you sleep in. There's a lot of dead time.
It's exhausting. And
it's worse. Like my brain, if I had nothing going on, I was just thinking about the match. I actually needed like healthy distractions. And so I was fine getting on emails or getting on phone calls or doing whatever I had to do. That was a welcome distraction. I'm kind of sensing a theme here that as we're talking through it, but I like the distraction of a regular school. I like so, maybe I just like the ability to turn it off sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be thinking, having a singular focus is fine for success. And I think that's a recipe for success. But I think everyone will share the same sentiment in that being obsessed with something can lead to burnout. Yeah.
I mean, and listen, I'm not saying I avoided burnout. I was 30 when I retired, but I don't know. I felt like there was time. You're on a plane flight for 16 hours. What the hell are you going to do? You got to do something. Like for as intense as tennis is, the travel, the days, there's 2-3 hours every day.
But there's so many athletes that would not use that time to be productive. They would do something else.
Before social media, we had to do something. True. We couldn't just plug away at our phones all day.
That's true.
I wasn't a video gamer, so we were.
Good for you.
I don't know. It didn't seem overextended. It seemed like there was all the time in the world.
Hearing you fill in the gaps of your journey and your piece. So it's cool to see on one hand the soul fulfilling internal development journey for you. You got the best of Andre Agassi. You had a mentor, and that was perfect timing for you. And then on the tennis level, you're coming at a time where you're at a crossroads with arguably three of the best, this force of the big three with Roger, Rafa, and Joker.
Yeah.
A couple points here or there, your record. I know you get asked that a gazillion times. I mean, what do you still have to explain yourself when you talk to people? I know people ask you all the time about the Roger.
Yeah. To me, again, it's matches, it's kind of simple. Like there's not much for me, it was like, I would lose to him however many times in a row. And for me, it was like, okay, let's fail better. Let's figure out a different way. Let's find something that might be effective. And it almost worked. We almost were 2 points away 5 or 6 different times at Wimbledon. Like that was the goal, to set yourself up and deliver your best performance on that stage. And I did that for 5 straight days at Wimbledon. We leave, people talk about the Roger match, but they leave out late in 5 sets. And then Murray was actually the betting favorite that year, and I beat him in the semis. And so I did it. You prepare, and I didn't come up against Roger. He, served 50 some odd aces, and he came up with the goods. But I can't sit here and say I didn't execute exactly what I was trying to do for the business end of that tournament. That helps me sleep. I don't.
You just left it all on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I walk in. I've only been to Wimbledon one time since I stopped playing, and I walk in there and I feel like I get kicked in the stomach because I want to walk through there as a former champion. Like you see the other people there, but I don't think about it that much unless it's actually in front of me. It's the hardest tournament for me to watch on TV. It's the only time I get really like emotional about the past life and not it just that's the one I wish. I can sit here and I can say honestly, had I won 6 majors and if Roger wasn't around and that, I don't know that it would be that much different had I just won Wimbledon. that's the thing I wanted. But I also have a lot of perspective. Like I don't know why, but I lost that match. And in 2009, I lost 2 others to him also, but people don't remember any of those. They just remember that one.
2009?
Yeah, they remember that one. But it's weird though. Like I'm able to, it was awesome. A month later in Washington, D.C., and I went back and I trained hard and was ready. But I had been a very polarizing figure in tennis, right? I was brash. I got through stuff, argued. There was a lot of media. There was a lot of press. There was a lot of, and you either liked it or you didn't. But it was almost like you had to choose a side with me for a while. And after that match, I think people saw, I think the flashiness of what my career was a lot different than the meat and potatoes of the work that was put in. And so they were very different. The public side I thought was very different than what the kind of underlying realities were. And after that match, I'd never had a better relationship with tennis fans ever. Like, I went out for a first round in Washington a month later on a Tuesday, middle of the week, and I walk out and it's packed. It's 15,000 people, and they're going nuts. I'm going, this is different. Like, there were people, used to, semis, finals, but it was the most fun I've ever had. I mean, people were coming to practice. Andy, we're with you. It was great. It was an unbelievable thing. And had I won, I don't know that side would have presented itself. I don't remember what happened afterwards. There was an interview. I don't remember. It's kind of a blur to me, but from that day,
I kind of want to dig up that Wimbledon post-match interview.
It completely changed my relationship with tennis fans. And it was good to go from there almost till the day I retired.
That's so fascinating.
So it was great. It's like all these little mini moments that maybe weren't there, where this guy didn't like me. I think he watched the Wimbledon final. He goes, man, maybe I was a little bit more of a worker. Maybe I wasn't, I don't know what it was, but it definitely changed my dynamic with fans. I think it changed the way people viewed me personally. So there were so many positives. I remember walking down, we flew back to New York, and Brooke had something going on there, and I was there for a couple of days just hanging around. I remember walking down the street, and, guys who were doing construction on the roads, like, Andy, man, tough one, we were with you. And I'm like, this is just different. It felt very different. And it was great. It was great. It was like the best medicine possible.
I think that's the one that I was trying to get to, because I think that every athlete, your transition has been very easy. Mm-hmm. But I think I was just curious about what was the one thing that you had that you still kind of ruminate or think about or reflect on? Because I think for every athlete, no one's journey is perfect. Mm-hmm. And there's always something that they wish they would have wanted a little bit more.
Sure.
Doesn't mean that you regret anything. Mm-hmm.
It's weird because selfishly, I want that tournament. I would love to be a Wimbledon champion. Like, that's the peak for me. But I also think, and maybe I'm just trying to like rationalize it away. Maybe I'm playing that game with myself, but I don't think my life would be any different. I really don't think it would be any different. And when I say it, people kind of like, you were kind of like, that's not true. But
no,
my kids, I would live the exact same way. I'm still the former tennis guy. You'd have one more tournament. Maybe there's something different. Parts of it I think might have been good. I don't know. But as far as like my day-to-day existence now, I don't think it would be any different. But I don't know. But that's the one. Yeah, that's the one that gets a reaction every once in a while, and it just gets less and less. And now I don't really think of it unless it's during the tournament or someone brings it up. And it's funny because you mentioned like every person has that moment or that thing that they're kind of talked about or known for. I call that the Starbucks moment, right? There's tennis matches and tennis people that know things.
Yes.
And then there's the one who reads your name on a coffee cup, looks up and goes, "Oh man, that match, man, that was." Are you kidding me? Yeah. And so that's the Starbucks thing. That's the Starbucks moment. Like, I'm not sure the other people you interviewed, but like they're known for certain things, and then this is the thing they're known like to Joe Schmo at Starbucks. Like he knows something about them, and that's the match.
But what's different is that a lot of the athletes I'm talking to, many of them NBA, NFL. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them don't have that moments because when they lose, they have 52 other players mm-hmm. to blame on and, mm-hmm. and the coaches. Mm-hmm. That's you should start writing a different name when you go to Starbucks after like the 7th or 8th time.
All right, Roger Federer.
So when you talk about being, when you talk about being terse or or rough with the media. What is it about the media or the fans that they don't get or they should understand?
Oh, no, I don't even think I was never angry at, people are like, oh, you were tougher than me. I say, no, I'm tough. I just expect you to pronounce the terminology of tennis the right way if you're covering a tennis event. I don't think that's too much to ask. So you get my clip on talking back to someone, but they would, you'd be in Cincinnati and some beat reporter would ask you about all the long volleys you had. I'm like, do you mean rallies? Like, do you, like, what? I'm like, But you
also said that you were rough with the officials or whatever.
Yeah.
Like where did that come from?
I don't know.
Because I don't remember you always being like that.
No, I was my biggest points to officials were when I would ask a question and what they said didn't make any sense. I couldn't let it go. Like, I just couldn't let it go. Or like, you relate to the ball. They're like, oh, you relate to the ball. Like, they're making a judgment call. They're like, you relate to the ball. It was past you. I'm like, I was standing in front of it. Like, I couldn't let it go if they were absolutely wrong. I just couldn't let it go. It was like I had to win an argument or something. It was like.
But the thing is like, as a 12-year-old, I don't remember you doing that.
There were no umpires.
You trash talking, but it was in jest. You always did it with a giggle or a smile.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like where that came from.
I don't know.
Or was it just always there?
Maybe it was an outlet. I don't know.
Because I can't imagine that you're like that today. You're not like that when you play golf, are you?
No.
Are you?
No. No, definitely not. It doesn't ruin my day.
But I feel like it was only just a certain period of your development, and maybe that was just your late teen years to early.
No, I don't know. It's funny because it wasn't like a Johnny Mac where it was every match.
Right.
It was like it would happen once every 6 months. But I remember thinking about it was like 09 Australia or something. It was one of the years I made semis, and the coverage is like nothing, right? It's the middle of the night, and I think that was before ESPN might have owned the rights, or they owned limited rights, or I don't know what it was. But you play all these matches, you make the second week of a slam, which is like, it's a big deal. Not a lot of people make the last 4 of a slam.
Yeah.
But then you would get zero coverage. But if you had a meltdown like second round, that would get 12 minutes. It's just so the way it was digested was a lot different. Like, quiet moments weren't worthy of coverage, but
media loves some drama.
But like, you give a smart ass press conference, or it was 07. I lost to Roger, and I gave like a kind of a deadpan press conference.
There were quite a few deadpan.
And I gave one, and that got the cover, but it's like, I've been down here for a month winning matches, and it takes like me talking, I don't know. But so the coverage is subjective, and I certainly get, and for me, it's like, you need eyeballs on the sport, however it happens, but doesn't always tell the most accurate story.
Yes, it's shaped.
Well, it's able to take a moment of time and use it to define all of the moments of time.
Well, speaking of moments, I decided to go back to your 2012 press conference when you decided to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever watched that press conference?
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah. Do you remember it?
I remember going in, and my only goal was not to have a breakdown.
And you didn't have a breakdown.
No, I was close.
20 minutes.
I was close a lot, but.
Yeah.
I remember I went in and people didn't know what I was going in for.
I was there that day.
I had never called a press conference, called it to go, and I think people thought like I was hurt and was going to withdraw from the tournament. That's kind of the only reason why you call a press conference, right? It's like, I'd already done media day. It was an off day. Like, God knows I wasn't going to do media on an off day. So it was, it was different. And it's like, my friends all came in, like, a couple of players knew what I was doing. Like, Marty's like, what are you doing? I'm like, that's it, man. And like, I had a harder time saying to him, like, that's it, than I did everyone else in the press conference room.
And why is that?
Don't know. Like, in that room, it was like when you kind of prepare yourself to like, listen, I'm not gonna let it go. But
Did you feel as though he's kind of your brother, your teammate, your friend? You felt like you were leaving him behind? Or?
No, I don't think it was that. I don't know. You just hear experiences, and you just know there's like a big shift, and it's not going to be the same. But it's I don't know. For me, it was like my emotions, like post match at Wimbledon, like I held it together barely, and then you go in a locker room and you're a mess for 4 hours. But for some reason, I was able to just kind of tighten it up when I had to. And so that whole retirement press conference, I was just trying to kind of try to hold it together a little bit.
It's funny to pick apart a moment in time and get the different perspectives. It's like if you ever, you got married several years ago, many years ago, whatever. But it's like if you talk to guests at the wedding, they'll tell you different stories about what went down at that same night. And you're like, oh, that happened. But I remember it was during the day, in the afternoon, and it was only my second year at ESPN. And I remember we got the notification that Andy Roddick's going to, there's a press conference for Andy. Like, that's weird. So, of course, media is like scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on. But there were some rumors that maybe there was some suggestion, maybe he's retiring. So everybody piles in and you come in and there's a 20-minute interview. And I think, do you mind if I pull it up?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to play the whole thing, but there was, and me sitting there watching you.
See, like, I'm glad I didn't make eye contact with you during it. Like, well, that would have affected me more than like. I felt like I was more emotional than you were that day. And I'll explain. I think there's this one moment that I think it's put up.
I'm not sure.
So I think this person had just asked, what are you going to miss the most?
All of you. I'm not sure. I'm lucky enough. There are a lot of players where I live. I don't think I'm one of the guys who won't pick up a racket for 3 years. I still love the innocent parts of the game. I love hitting tennis balls, and I love seeing the young guys do well, and so I'll still have a lot of friends to watch, and I'll miss the relationships probably the most. As time passes, I'll probably miss the tennis more. But immediately, that's probably the thing that is toughest for me.
Why not wait for
No more.
final match? What day did you want the opportunity? Why?
Those are good reasons. I think I wanted an opportunity to say goodbye to people as well. I don't know how tomorrow's going to go. I hope it goes well, and I hope I'm sticking around. But I just imagine being off the court tomorrow in an empty locker room. I think I wanted the chance to say goodbye, and I also, if I do run into some emotions tomorrow or in 4 days or however long, I don't want people to think I'm a little unstable. So, or more unstable. So that's why I came to this decision. I have no idea. And I told, I talked to Larry and Doug, and I said I could come out and play great, and it could be the worst thing you've ever seen. I don't know. I haven't done this before, so I'm sure it'll be very emotional. I'm sure I'll still be nervous. I don't know.
It's crazy, like, looking back at that. I mean, what do you...
That week was one of my favorite weeks I've ever had on the Pro Tour. It was like all of the awesomeness of being a pro tennis player with 0% of the stress, concern, responsibility. I remember we went out for a couple because I made a decent run, made the second week, and
into the fourth round.
played well. Beat a couple good players along the way, And I remember it's like I was doing things that week where like I'd go and hit on an off day, and we'd be like 21 minutes in, and I'd go, "It's good." My coach would be like, "You haven't hit a serve." I'm like, "Does it matter?" Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But it was just fun because like I allowed myself, when I was playing those night matches and on center court and everything, you let your eyes drift up and you're not scared of losing focus. You're like, tomorrow it doesn't matter. Like,
because you want to soak it in too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I would have felt differently had it been like a semi or final and all of a sudden you're going, oh my gosh, this would be amazing. But it became, and I said it in the press conference, it became so peeled back and innocent for that entire week. But with all the benefit of playing a night match. And it was one of my favorite weeks. It was, instead of going to bed right away, like a couple of friends were downstairs. So it's like, let's go talk to him for a while. It was great. It was great. It was like a one big hug. It was great.
Yeah, I think the fans embraced you, the media embraced you. Everybody was like sad and emotional. I think for me watching it, I've never really seen myself as a member of the media. I've always considered myself just a tennis player and athlete first. So that day was, I got emotional, and I explained it on our show, US Open Now, after you and I did the Heineken interview and we aired it, and then I threw up our childhood photos. And I was explaining to Jamie Sire and Nick McCarville, who were hosting, I said, this is why tennis is so special. It's more of just the family, the community, because it's so tight-knit, and so many of us have grown up together. And so I felt that day that when you retired, that was it for me. Because like you were like, you made it. And now I'm getting emotional. I'm the one that's supposed to be getting you emotional. And I explained it to them that that's what Naomi Osaka meant when they had that whole sportsmanship moment, and she brought Coco Gauff afterwards to address the fan with Mary Jo on the court. And then afterwards, Osaka looked over at Coco's family and said, I remember running into you guys at the Florida Academy. And she said, but here we are. We made it. Both of us made it. And I said, and I explained to everybody on that show, I was like, that's what that means.
Yeah.
That is a moment to show you what tennis means to the players and to us. And so I've never told you that, but I was just so excited to share that with you, because like, watching you and your career, I don't know how others feel, but it's like I was able to live vicariously through you, because it's like you made it.
Yeah, but you made it, but it's just it's such a fine line. I mean, it's just such a fine line. Like, and I remember even playing, and you'd run into friends that you played junior tennis with, and what separates it? I don't know. Like confidence. All of a sudden you wake up and you're inches taller and you can serve. I don't know what the weeding out process is, but there's not much difference besides just doing it daily, and between making it and not, like what you call making it and not. It's just such a fine line. I mean, we talk about Travis Rettenmeier, and he played fine. It was doubles, but like, there's no difference. Except for, I don't know, maybe you lose a match when you're 16. Maybe you make the wrong decision and you go to school, and then maybe that way, like, it's a lot of it's luck, and where you're making decisions that are right at the time. And what if I say to Saddlebrook? We discussed that. Like, who knows? Right. Like the what if game, I always say this to my wife and to my friends. Well, like, what if the what if game never ends and it's not worth playing? It's a never ending conversation.
You're right. It's not. I actually reconnected with Travis. I haven't talked to him in several years. We just reconnected a couple of months ago for some reason. And I'll share that picture for those listening on the pod. I'll share the picture. There's three of us going to Cali, Colombia with Chrissy Everett's brother, John Everett. And we're like
Did you watch Narcos?
Yes, I did. I know. You're really hung up on this Cali, Colombia
I didn't know.
gun situation.
Didn't know.
Yeah, but it's not like we were, roaming around at night, trying to party. We were in a 5-star hotel. And yeah, the 4-star hotel wasn't, it was kind of like a 1-star hotel compared to America, but
Yeah, it was fine until I watched Narcos.
But I had a conversation with Travis, and it's like if you take that picture and you break it apart, and we're kind of all sitting there, I don't want to say on the same level, but it's interesting how we could all have different paths, completely different paths. I think Travis went to UCLA, he ended up dropping out, went on the pro tour, and struggled for a little bit, and he's still trying to he's finally finding his way, but it's just interesting to take that picture and see how one similar experience could lead to 3 different paths.
Yeah. And a lot of it's stuff that's not in any, you can't tell me any 12-year-old controls their own thing. There's a million outside influences. So that is not a small part of it. Right. And so, but it's weird. It's like you make a million decisions every day, and all of those decisions matter in some way, shape, or form, positively, negatively, right? You can make a decision that everyone would think was the right thing to do. You go to Saddlebrook. Like, that's what you do. But maybe it's not right for some people. Maybe it's not what's best. And it's almost a case-by-case basis where I think in sports we try to lump everyone into the same thing. And there's coaches try to sell one formula, which I don't think it's one size fits all.
No. Or it could just be you make decisions, and neither decision or event is good or bad. We as humans like to label everything, but whether it's the universe or whatever you believe in, God or whatever, nothing's good or bad. It just is.
Yeah, and it's just weird things like I had an ability to fail, and it didn't affect me too much. I'd be hurt, but it was like it didn't affect the next 3 months of my life. I wanted to get up and get going. I don't know why, but let's say you lose. I remember losing the Kalamazoo final when I'm 16 to Alex Bogomolov, and I was devastated. But it didn't alter it. That match, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. And I was able to pick it up and go. And that was probably my best quality as a tennis player. I lost way more than I won. I failed on the biggest stages.
Your just ability
ever.
To get back up and move forward.
Just simple. I think just to pare it down and simplify. You're sitting there after 2009 Wimbledon. It's like, okay, well, you want to get up and go to work tomorrow? Yeah. It's what I should do. I don't have to be happy about it. I wasn't rainbows and sunshine. I was devastated, but put your hat on and you go to work. Everyone else has to go to work.
Well, you moving forward seems to be a thing. Because is it true that you got rid of a lot of your trophies? Yeah,
I don't have hardly any of them.
But that was only a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it wasn't even a big thing. We were moving, and there was this room, and the last thing I would ever want, if you're welcome to come over tonight and have some wine with Brooke and I, but if you walked in, you wouldn't see one thing that had to do with tennis in our house.
Why did you decide to do that?
We were moving. And it's like I didn't.
It was just a convenient time.
But it was like not to disrespect, but it was like a 2008 Beijing, champion tournament, or 2007 San Jose, and there's 3 of them lined up, and it's like, I was there. I don't need this to tell me I was there. Anyone who's in this house knows that I won some of these, right? It's not like. I didn't need it for validation. I kept the ones that people are happy to see. I have.
So you use your U.S. Open trophy as a petri dish, or not a petri dish, but a candy dish.
If you come over, I will show you where it is. It's in a big box on the floor, covered up.
You don't even have it hanging out?
No, not right now.
God,
no, it's back in the office, but I don't know. I don't the stuff that people you come over they want to see an SB. They're like, oh, that's cool, but that's
you got rid of it.
No, it's there. Okay. I have 5.
Okay.
Yeah, but I got rid of, and Brooke came home. She's like, "What'd you do?" And I go, "I just got rid of all of them." She was like, "Where, how, and why?" And we were moving, so it was like there was a big dumpster out in front of our house.
Oh my God! And your trophies were just sitting there.
I mean, they're glass trophies, and I just gone.
Oh my
And that was
gosh.
it.
There seems to be a connection between like the sentimental value with something,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to take the emotion out of it.
See, but the
And I
emotion.
don't want to make it to sound like you're robotic, but if there's a loss, you're able to just
No, the
shut it
emotion.
off.
The emotion's there. I mean, it's there. But like I said, like it has to do with. I'm not going to get emotional just because there's a lot of cameras in the room and there's volume at a retirement press conference. Like talking to my best friend from tour, like that makes me emotional. Like our relationship's changing. Like that tears at me more than talking to a room full of journalists
Mhm.
who are reporting on a story. I'm more likely to get emotional driving alone than I am at any other time.
Is that because you're alone?
I don't know. I don't know the answer, and I'm sure some psychologist is going to watch this and go, like,
I'm applying to
There's
school to get my doctorate in
God.
psychology.
oh, geez, thank you. Can't wait to talk laying down like this.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it happens.
But at a certain point, like I just value, like at a certain point, just we're sad. Okay, should we delve into that, or should we figure out what we're going to do about it?
Gosh, you have such a.
And so with the trophies, it's like they're almost embarrassing. Like if someone walks into the house, like I don't want to be that guy who has stuff up, and then I don't want to move them either. Like I'm going to move them just to be tired of them, like. So I kept the ones that meant the most to me. I don't
Did
know.
you tell Mrs. Roddick? What'd your mom say?
I don't know. I don't know where one of the runner-up Wimbledon finals trophies is. I don't know where.
It's somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, she was probably pissed, but she probably just rolls her eyes and idiot. She's been used to me being an idiot for a long time. Like it's probably not a new thing, but it's weird because I'm not relevant anymore. I'm not in a news cycle anymore, and so all of a sudden Brooke said something about he threw away his trophies, and
You were back in it.
no, it's like I'm like scrolling. It's like a news story. I'm like checking tennis results. Like throws away all his trophies. What's going on? I'm like, this sounds emotional. It's not emotional. Like there's nothing. There wasn't like I was planting a flag in the ground or anything. It was just like we were moving. I viewed it as like clutter and like unnecessary.
That's hilarious.
So that was it.
I now have to throw away my trophies because if you're not keeping your trophies,
No.
now we all have to. Get rid of our
No, but it's not the
trophies.
same rule. It's not the same rule.
Oh
That's
my
like if there's one
gosh.
takeaway, it's like it's not the same recipe for everybody. Like it's just not, especially in sport. I mean, you're going to walk through this and do this whole show, and I'm curious to the commonalities that you'll be able to draw down across the board. I'm sure there will be some,
With regard, there's already a ton.
but I think there's probably less than maybe people would just think. Right? So he's an athlete. They're driven. They're this. They're that. But I just think people process stuff different ways.
They do.
You know?
Yeah. But you've clearly been able to move forward,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing all sorts of stuff. You have your charity,
Mm-hmm.
you have your investments,
Mhm.
your real estate, a lot of stuff. And I think that when I was going through some of the information about you, I started to see the theme of how important business is to you.
Mm-hmm.
You even started dropping business terminology when you were somehow talking about tennis. You use like uptick and just, I don't know,
Oh.
just things. So is that where your passion is today?
I think so. There's
Yeah.
so much I don't know. And for any athletes who are watching this and interested at all, like you have access to great minds, people who are interested in what you do. Don't make it one-way traffic. I cringe when I see an athlete in a room talking about what they do and they're talking to someone who's super successful in their field and don't like learn something or don't kind of do it. So I'm just curious, and I'm curious to know what I don't know. I don't want to keep repeating what I think I do know. Business has been amazing. Investing in different businesses is fun. Every time you vet a deal, you learn about a new little. We are a very small section of tennis. That's what we know. It's very small in the grand scheme of the entire world, and so there's a lot out there.
When did you start investing? When was the beginning of it?
I was young.
Also
you're somewhere around there. You're also. I've been lucky to have the right people in place at the right time. My de facto godfather is a guy named Phil Myers. He was my dad's accountant, and my dad was very driven, tough, military background, but also knew his limitations. And I think I probably got that from him a little bit. But he basically convinced Phil to quit his job and go on this venture with buying and running Jiffy Lubes. And Phil's the kind of guy that math is just easy for, and he can read, legal jargon and business stuff, and like it just makes sense to him very quickly. It's like us breaking down a matchup. Like it just makes sense, right? He's been in my life since I can remember, and all of a sudden you're making money and you need a place to put it. And so I had free coaching, and then all of a sudden we started we make a move on some real estate, and then it grows, and everything, you have to understand, like everything starts very small. Like you buy, I had a Jiffy Lube because I needed proof, of something for credit, like to get credit for the first time. And then it kind of grows, into a 12-state operation, and, clients that people know the names of. But it starts very little, and it's the same business. It's just, you've done it more, but I'm just curious. Like I will not waste an opportunity to ask a question.
Yeah. Well, you're unafraid. I think what's good about you is that you seem very unafraid to ask questions. A lot of people have too big of an ego.
I'd rather be dumb once.
Right. Yeah, that's a good philosophy to go by. You're unafraid to ask questions, and you also have the macro perspective and patience in terms of investing and building something. And maybe that started with your career, but it's, you start with the foundation at a very young age, and you've built that up, and you've raised over $20 million. I think in the beginning you only had several dozen kids, and now you've got several thousand that are participating in it. And then with your investments, there's not a lot of, forget athletes, but just young people who start investing in their 20s. But somehow you had that vision to build for the future, not just 5 years, 10 years, but 30, 40, 50 years down the road.
I don't know. You're making it sound a lot more conscious than I think it was.
It is conscious, because I talk to athletes all the time, and it's a problem. I mean, there's a whole reason. I'm going back to get my doctorate so I can create a transition program for athletes, because there's a lot of them that get stuck, not only financially, but emotionally, because they don't know how to start planting the seed for the future. But the ones that do have a specific kind of vision.
I'd say have a plan, stick to it. It's not a lot different than what would make them a great athlete, right?
Right, yeah.
You staying out late doesn't matter as much, but having discipline, being the person who beat balls over and over, having faith in a long-term plan, like you can apply. But for some reason, athletes are able to do it in their sport, but then when it comes out of it, it's like, oh, my Uncle Joe knows this great investment. It's like,
why? What happened?
Would you not pursue the best coaching possible in your sport? They basically just, I feel it's like they take wild swings in business that they would never take in their own lane.
Yeah.
So it's just simple. Like for me, it was just simple. We had a plan. We stuck to it. We waited until there was opportunity in the marketplace, and then we got real aggressive. But it's kind of counterproductive. I think just read as much as you can. Don't be scared to ask dumb questions one time, because then you'll know it forever. And follow up. Like if you have a conversation with someone, you're curious about it. Hey, I don't want to take much of your time, but can you explain this to me? Or, I had a call this morning with a board member from our foundation, and, we're walking on our next 3-year plan. But it's nice to have people to call to say, how do we actually we're deciding between A and B. Is there a way to get 3 options, A, B, and C, present at the next board meeting, so at least we know what sort of resources we'll need with each option? She goes, well, yeah, I did that. I did that for, Civitas Learning and Bazaar Voice, and I'd love to be able to do that. I go, see, that's easy for you, how do we do that? And she's like, I can take care of that and I can walk you through it. It's like, great. But don't be scared to make that call, and don't be too proud to say like, hey, I'm a dumb athlete. Can you walk me through what the processes would be? And I've never had a problem like doing that. The ego that I had in tennis, it doesn't apply to everything because I'm not good at everything.
Is that your advice to a lot of athletes out there? Don't be afraid to ask those dumb.
Don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. I feel like some athletes, because they're good at one thing, they think they have this like insecurity that they have to be good at everything. That makes no sense at all. So follow up, be disciplined, make sure it's not one-way traffic with relationships, right? Hey, I'd love for you to help me if there's anything I can do. For me, it's like if I can ever MC an event, if I can ever add, if you do something, if I can add value in any way, shape, or form, it's a one for one favor. I think entitlement doesn't really work that way, and you have to check it at the door. Like inside of tennis, I could probably demand more, whether it's on a product side, whether it's my time is more valuable there because I know a little bit more than it would be over here. So maybe I have to pay my dues here. An hour isn't an hour across all sectors, so you kind of have to know what you don't know.
That's good advice. I know your foundation is awesome, and that it focuses on closing the educational gap, and you provide a lot of after school programs during the summer. And is there any way people that want to help, if I can help, what are the ways in which we can help? Yeah, so
arfoundation.org is our website. We're doing some cool stuff. We're a pretty intense program. We start in kindergarten, which is something that normally gets a reaction. Like, that's young and you're pretty intense.
No, I think it's supposed to start young.
But again, it's just asking questions. We have an unbelievable board, and I'm the dumbest person in the room at all times, and that's probably rule number 1. But people automatically go to what's easy. College prep makes sense. Like, you're on the way, you're in high school, college prep program. There's a lot of them. Okay. Is that what's most effective, or is that what's easiest to explain? It's easiest to explain, I think. We started in kindergarten because it's like, I read a stat and it just dominated my thoughts I couldn't get it out of my head. 3rd grade reading levels in the state of Texas dictate how they predict jail capacity.
Wow.
By a certain year. So I'm going, what's too late? Like, if you start in 4th grade, are you too late? So it's just kind of, we've done it, and we've done a good job, and we've grown, and we found a lane, and it's been cool. It's been fun. It's been rewarding. Again, I can help on the fundraising side. I can help on bringing attention to it. You can ask me about it. That helps. And we've made a difference. But, time matters. We need volunteers. We always need, but more importantly, just go tell someone about it. And not specifically us, but out of school time learning. The biggest learning gaps isn't between, wealthy schools, poor schools. It's the idle time in the summer. Affluent kids have programs. We were able to go to Saddlebrook. We filled time. We were never bored. We never, could get into too much trouble. We tried to get into a little bit of trouble, but not too much. But that's where the biggest gap is in the after school and summer spaces. And so we pretty much just attacked it and tried to make a difference.
Well, I love how the first time I'm using my notes is actually 2 hours in, but I pulled off a letter from one of the students that has been going to your foundation, and she said, "My name is Rosa. I am in 3rd grade at Pecan Springs. I've been with ARF since the beginning when I was a Pink Flamingo." I assume that's a school? Or
no, they're
camp?
Different groups,
okay.
Different colors and animals.
Every summer, I am excited to come to camp because we do fun things like go on field trips, make robots, learn about how to build buildings, and do Workout Wednesday with Coach Angie and Coach Casey. At summer camp, all the teachers make me feel special and cared about. We all have so much fun together, even though I do not like to wake up early, but I do love coming to camp. Being part of the Andy Roddick Foundation has taught me how to communicate with others, respect others, and become a good leader, which will be helpful when I become a teacher.
I hope she's right.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's the part that has been rewarding, and it was an unintended consequence, is the kids have a great time, but for parents that were committed and school day ends at 3, so they have to leave work at 2, by providing a safe place that actually adds value, it allows parents to work 3 or 4 more hours a day. Now you multiply that times 5 days a week, times a year, and all of a sudden they're great providers, as opposed to providers that have to make a choice or a sacrifice, not dissimilar to what we've been talking about. So if we can just take that one huge life choice out of the family, it can make a huge difference. And that's kind of been probably the most rewarding part, because it really does affect the entire family.
I don't think I would have had that perspective until I had a kid, and my little guy is 1 year old.
I didn't. It's a completely different perspective.
It is.
I did it for the kids, and now I understand the parents' perspective.
Yeah, because it really does take a village, and now you're kind of providing that village for kids that don't have that village.
Well, our teachers and administrators and everything, they do a great job.
Bear, thank you so much. Was it awful? How bad was it? 1 to 10.
It was great.
I really hope you enjoyed this conversation with Andy. Don't forget to check out part 1 with him if you haven't gotten a chance to do so. But as always, I'm open to comments and questions and even ideas about who I should bring on to the show next. You can always reach out to me on social media at Prim_Siripipat. The Next Chapter with Prim Siripipat is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.